Okay. I'll give you another example.
Okay.
So there's a geologist called Ian Plimmer.
Yes.
And he said that the amount of energy that you've got to put in to build a wind farm or a solar farm is more than the energy that they will produce. Now, if that was the case, the more wind farms you build and the more solar farms or solar on the roofs that you produce, you'd have to have more coal-fired power stations, but we're closing them down. So in England, they've actually gone coal-free for a couple of weeks, so they're not burning any coal.
Yeah.
And they've got they've got a lot of wind farms, so they're producing a lot of wind farms, building a lot of wind farms.
And I agree that reducing the amount of coal being burned and released into the atmosphere, fossil fuels, I agree that regardless of any science, you don't want to be breathing in shit, right?
Sure.
That makes absolute sense, absolute sense, and I think that makes absolute sense to anyone. I think the argument with the wind farms and the solar, like perhaps the technology is just not quite there, and it should. Okay, what do you got?
I'm glad you brought up that topic because this is the cost to produce power from wind and solar. So it's
can you explain what the costs are as well?
This is coal.
Yep.
Okay, so it's about half. So that the power generated from coal costs about twice as much. Okay, but the advantage of coal is that you can burn it at night, which you can't do with solar.
Sure.
With wind, the wind blows sometimes at night too, so it's a little bit better. But if you bring in batteries, then the wind is, not with batteries, you've got to have pumped hydro. So it's where you pump water up. So when the wind's blowing, you pump water up the hill. And then when the wind stops blowing, you let the water down and it drives a turbine. So, and that produces your electricity. So with pumped hydro, wind farms come in just under coal.
Okay.
And that's with the technology that we've got. And it's getting cheaper.
So does that takes into account the
cost of construction,
logistics, all that type of stuff? Okay, that's a very interesting stat.
Yeah.
So that's suggesting that the technology is there.
Technology is absolutely there. So storage is the difficulty that renewables has had.
Is that the big problem now, the storage of energy?
No, not anymore, because we can do pumped hydro. We can also do batteries. So the cost of batteries is coming down all the time. Batteries are now viable. There's a dirty great big battery that's going into Canberra, into the ACT. There's a dirty great big one in South Australia and another one planned, I think. So and pumped hydro, so building dams where you pump water up. That's a great option.
Absolutely.
Hydrogen is another one. So with solar, or wind, you can break water atoms into oxygen and hydrogen, and then when the wind stops or the sun goes down, you can reburn that hydrogen.
Okay.
You can get methane off tips, so that's another thing that you could be using at night.
How do you get methane off the tips?
Just pipe off the methane from the tip.
Okay.
So they put pipes underground and collect it, and then run a combustion engine.
Okay.
At night, so yeah.
Okay. Does that combustion engine have pollutants going into the atmosphere?
Yeah, so it produces CO2 too. But the thing is that methane's about 100 times worse. So you're collecting a really bad fossil. Well, it's not a fossil fuel, but it's becoming fossilized, I guess. So it's breaking down and it produces methane. Mm-hmm. So as it breaks down, it produces methane, and you collect the methane and burn it.
Okay. So this evidence here from RMIT.
Yeah.
is suggesting that it is not only beneficial but cheaper to run solar and wind.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Now, I don't know anything about that at all. I'm taking it from RMIT. They're the experts. Okay, cool. That sounds good. So why aren't we doing that?
Because of corruption.
Is it just corruption? Because why wouldn't people be jumping into this as well? Like if they can save money, if they can make more money from selling the exact same product at the exact same price but less money having to be invested into it, wouldn't people be doing that to save their bottom line?
Yep, and they are. So householders are putting a lot of solar onto roofs, and I think Australia's, probably I think that they're the biggest. I think actually the Prime Minister was saying that we've got the highest amount of solar on roofs, and it's a sunny country, so it makes sense. And I've got solar on my roof, and it takes about 4 or 5 years, or maybe 6 years to pay off the solar, and after that you got free electricity. Wind is generally, big commercial operations, and there's a lot of investment happening right around the world with wind.
Okay.
So right through Europe, Tasmania, the south end of Australia is getting a lot of wind farms. So, the thing is that the government could be doing more, and the government is not very enthusiastic about wind farms. They say that they're ugly. Quite often Liberal Party members have said that they're ugly. Not that a coal-fired power station is beautiful. I don't think that wind farms are particularly ugly, but they're certainly producing power with much less emissions. So there is some emissions in the construction, but obviously once it's constructed and once it's installed, there's no emissions there.
Okay.
Whereas with coal, you've got to dig it up, you've got to transport it, you've got to burn it, and then you've got to clean up after all the mess. So you've got to clean up the smoke. So the smoke comes out, and you've got to collect what they can. But some of the emissions from a coal-fired power station they can't collect because it's too fine or it's too hard to collect. And that's killing people who are downwind from a power station, or people in Beijing, or some of those.
So what happens if you're not in Australia and you have a country that isn't, perhaps, let's say England, and there's not that much sunshine there? How does it, or if it's not very windy for perhaps a couple of weeks, there's just for whatever reason it's not that windy. What happens then?
Well, there's a few things. So we could sell them hydrogen, so that'd be one thing. They also still install solar, but it's not as, they're not going to get as much electricity from it.
When you say sell hydrogen, as in sell the gas,
yes.
How do you get the gas there?
So you run electricity through water, and it'll bubble.
Yes.
And you get at one connection you get oxygen, and at the other you get hydrogen. So you just collect the hydrogen.
No, sorry, I mean, how do you get the hydrogen to the people in England?
Got to stick it in a ship.
Okay.
And you got to transport it.
Yeah. So that there comes some emissions there. Obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the way to handle that is to offset it. So you can plant forests and collect the CO2 out of the atmosphere that way.